Hey, how are you doing? Voice is feeling a bit light today. What's going on here? Who knows? I'm going to talk about the power of laughter, especially the power of laughter relating to personal development. But don't worry, we're not about uh, think positive, laugh, 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 and everything will be okay. It's not about that. Not at all. Anybody who knows me will know that there's two sides to every story, and I cover both sides. So here we go. So let's talk about the power of laughter. And in particular, I'm interested in how does humor shape our personal growth? Interesting question, right? I like asking great questions. And it took me a while to think that one up. Sometimes it does. So where do you sit on humor? Do you use humor in your life? Do you lean on humor when the going gets tough? It's a fascinating subject. And it does have quite a big impact, or it can have quite a big impact on our personal development. So let's have a think about it. Well, first off, humor is more than just a way to entertain ourselves. Why? Because it's a powerful tool that can actually shape our lives. It can improve our well-being and it can help enhance our relationship. The thing is, though, like any tool, it has to be used wisely. So let's look at the bright side and the not so bright side. As I mentioned a few minutes, you've got this two sides to every story. So on the bright side of humor, we have emotional resilience. It's a big one. Have you ever noticed, for example, how a good laugh can make you feel lighter? It makes me feel great. And that can be true even on the dark days, when the going's really difficult and so on, you have a good laugh and suddenly you feel a bit better. And that's because, simple science here, laughter triggers the release of endorphins. And endorphins are the body's natural feel-good chemicals. And these magical substances help us to reduce stress and to better cope with life challenges more effectively. So humor allows us to see situations from a different perspective. I'm always talking about perspective. And we get a different perspective when we use humor. And that can enable us to turn off opportunities that seem difficult and full of obstacles into positive opportunities that are actually going to work. It can also help us to turn setbacks into stories. Stories are powerful. Stories help us move forward. Even we don't need to tell everybody else our stories. We tell ourselves or remind ourselves of our stories, and that can help us turn the big opportunities, the big obstacles into opportunities. I don't know, I'm having one of those get it the wrong way around days, I guess. It happened in a few other things earlier today as well, one with a client. So it's quite amusing. We've got to see the funny side. So the other thing is also about social skills, the humor-related social skills, because humor can play a really important role in enhancing our social skills. It's kind of an ingredient, you could call it a secret ingredient in a recipe, because it breaks the ice and turns strangers into friends. And we have shared laughter because shared laughter strengthens bonds and creates a sense of togetherness, camaraderie. And when we use it appropriately, humor can help us to resolve conflict. It can help us to ease tensions and create a positive atmosphere in any social setting. So what about, so you know that I'm a psychologist if you've been following me for a while, what about the cognitive benefits? Beyond emotions, particularly, and social connections, humor helps boost our cognitive abilities. It encourages creativity because it helps us to think outside the box. And by thinking outside the box, we can find unconventional solutions to some of our problems and challenges. So when we approach our challenges with a humorous mindset, we're more likely to experiment with new ideas and also to persist in finding the answers. Personal growth humor, it's like a mirror. It reflects our true selves. It does require self-awareness and the ability to laugh at ourselves sometimes. And that fosters or helps us to build much greater self-acceptance. So people with a good sense of humor are often more open to new experiences and willing to step outside their comfort zones. And that contributes or gives fuel to our personal growth and learning. Humor is good for confidence boosting too. It's good for positivity. It reminds us not to take life or ourselves too seriously, because sometimes taking ourselves too seriously can kind of pull us down, slow us down, push us in the wrong direction. So let's think about physical health. Laughter is a great medicine. There's enough comedians that talk about this stuff, and academics. Laughter boosts our immune system. It improves cardiovascular health and increases blood flow, and that enhances our overall well-being. So if we can incorporate humor into our daily lives, we don't only kind of raise our spirits, but we also strengthen our body. So I said there was another side to this. So what's not the bright side? The Monty Python song, Always Look on the Bright Side, just came into my head. Always look on the bright side of life. Anyway, the not so bright side of humor. So I've just shown you that humor has quite a lot of benefit. But it's important to recognize that there are potential downsides. So let's have a think about some of these challenges that come with it. So we can find sometimes humor is misinterpreted, or it kind of creates some offense in other people. It's kind of like a double-edged sword in a way, I suppose, because what I find funny, you may not. You may find what I find funny quite offensive or inappropriate. We need to be aware of insensitive jokes, or particularly humor that's based on stereotypes, because that can hurt people and damage relationships. And we need to think too about cultural differences because they play a role. Humor doesn't always translate well across cultures. I know that. I live in France, and although I was speaking with a group of friends in English not so long ago, I kind of used a dialect joke that comes from where I'm from in the UK. And they didn't get it. They understood the words, but they didn't get the humor. So we do need to think. It doesn't always translate that well across cultures. What's hilarious in my culture might be confusing, as it was, or it may even be offensive in another culture. So we need to think about those things. Then there's the thing of avoidance and deflection. Sometimes humor can be like a shield because it allows us to avoid addressing serious issues. It can mask our true feelings about something. It can prevent us from confronting important matters that really do need some attention and resolution. So humor can definitely lighten the load, but on the other hand, we shouldn't be using it to avoid dealing with what's weighing us down. Let's have a think about social challenges. Sometimes in social situations, we can misjudge the appropriateness of humor. and misjudging can lead to awkward situations and strained relationships. What about humor in the workplace? I've come across this before. This thing called, that I like to term as exclusive humor. In other words, perhaps more commonly known as inside jokes, insider jokes. Because insider jokes can alienate people who aren't in on it. And that can create feelings of exclusion and marginalization. And then what about this other sort of humor? And this one's quite common. It's a little bit too common sometimes, I feel. This idea of self-depreciating humor. Because self-depreciating humor can be endearing, but when overused, it might reflect low self-esteem or even reinforce negative self-perception. Making too many jokes at our own expense can and does undermine confidence. And that can lead other people to question our self-worth as well as ourselves. So let's have a think for a minute about the professional environment. I used to work at British Aerospace a long time ago, and it was a busy office. The majority of the people who worked in this particular office were women. The male population in the office was about 15 or 20%. Sometimes the humor was not appropriate. Humor in professional settings needs to be used carefully. If we're over-reliant on humor, that might even be seen as unprofessional or that we're lacking some kind of seriousness, and that can impact career advancement. Think about it for a minute. It's really important that we balance humor with professionalism because we want to maintain focus and productivity. Depending on humor, relying solely on humor as a coping mechanism can hinder emotional development. It may prevent us from developing other skills as well, such as empathy, active listening, problem solving. And then there's this thing, the idea of a relationship that's built entirely on humor might lack depth. Excuse me, where did that word go? It might lack depth. And that's because meaningful connections require more genuine interactions. So how do we balance humor in our personal development? Or how can we use the power of humor and avoid some of the pitfalls that I've just been talking about? Here's a couple of things to consider. Be mindful of context. So try to tailor your humor to the audience and the situation. Make sure it's inclusive and make sure it's respectful. Balance humor with seriousness. Sometimes humor is definitely appropriate, but sometimes we need a serious approach. We need to balance that. We need to practice empathy and active listening alongside humor. Let's think about reflecting on intentions. Think about when you use humor, why are you using humor in that particular situation? Okay, sometimes it happens very quickly, but try to keep that in your mind. Why am I using humor? Why is it appropriate at this point? We've got to make sure as well that humor isn't being used to avoid important issues or to mask emotions. There are other things. Perhaps sometimes as well, we need to look for feedback so we can find out how other people respond to humor. How open are they? Do we need to adjust our humour or approach? In other words, talk about it. Humour is quite a powerful tool or ally in our journey of personal development. It does help enhance our emotional resilience. It strengthens our social connections. It boosts our cognitive abilities, and it contributes to our overall well-being. Yet, it is essential to use humour thoughtfully and consider its potential impact on other people and on ourselves. And if we can embrace humour with awareness and intention, then we can maximize its benefits and navigate the challenges it presents. So let's laugh. Let's continue to laugh. Let's continue to learn and grow, and know that humor can absolutely be a guiding light on our path to becoming the best versions of ourselves. Okay. If you have questions or comments, as usual, leave the comments. Send direct messages by all means. You will always get a response. Thanks for being here today. I will speak to you again really soon. I'm looking for the stop record button. Have a brilliant day. Take care. See you later.